Welcome back to Backstory STL. For First Alert 4, I'm Matt Woods. My guest this week is a man whose life spiraled while using the drug crack for decades. His life was often filled with despair, but through his lows, he found a light. Now, he wants to give back to young kids and try to be a role model that he didn't have. His struggles are not unique, but are often shied away from in conversation. Here, we give him that platform. Here's the backstory of John Perkins.
But I thank Channel 4, I thank you, Matt, for just allowing me to come and just let you know how I got off drugs, man. And that's what my book was all about. It wasn't about monetary value. I just wanted addicts to find a book, find recovery. And in that process, I found Christ, Jesus Christ, But if I never went through a treatment center, I wouldn't have found, God. I knew of God, I knew about him, but didn't have a personal relationship. And I've been through so many treatment centers. I knew one day that I would never do drugs again. Like I said, I was out, I sold dope, then I became my worst customer. For 20 years, I was using crack cocaine. I lived in Atlanta, lived in Cape Girardeau. My last movement was to Springfield. 2007, I went back down where I lived on the Holderman tracks off Walton and Kensington at 3 o'clock in the morning, man. And I heard God say, you done been through all the treatment centers, penitentiary in the grave, what you gonna do? I called my Bishop George White Jr., and I told him, I said, I'm out of here. I'm going back to Springfield. I went back to Springfield 2007, and I was done. My last day of use was April 10th, 2007. I just celebrated 18 years this month off crack cocaine. It's a hard journey, but the number one thing is you got to admit that you got a problem. If you never admit that you got a problem, you will never find recovery. You got to admit you got a problem. I'm not going to sit here and say I didn't like using drugs. I didn't like the consequences. The consequences was getting worse. Every time I went back out there, it got worse. It got worse. I'm a part of a recovery group. I can't break the tradition, but I am a part of a recovery group. I do have a sponsor. I have the same sponsor that I'd had for 30 years. My home church really, really was a big supporter. It was West End Mount Carmel Full Gospel Church. Bishop George White Jr. was my pastor at the time. He'd been my pastor for like 27 years. And he never gave up on me. But one time I remember I called him, I said, Bishop, I got a job. He was like, John, you don't need no job. All you're gonna do is take your money to the dope man, you need recovery. And that was true. Because I didn't have a problem having with jobs. I was just working to get high.
Yeah.
And for those 27 years, I've been under the same leadership. He, quote unquote, retires, semi-retired. So he passed the mantle to his daughter, Pastor Maya White, and she's our bishop now. She got appointed as bishop for 10 years, still under the same church, and she has the same leadership and support. My home church really supported me a big time. My bishop said, if you don't see John in 2 weeks, he's back out there. I struggled, Matt. I struggled. But one thing I didn't do was run from my church, because I knew that was my hope shot. That was my my safety zone, you know. And I would tell anybody, go to treatment center, find your, whether it's AA, NA, CA, whatever group, find your sponsor, find recovery, and find your home church, man. You know, everybody got a thing, man. Mine just happened to be crack. You know, I went to Sumner High School, man. State champion, 1982. Football scholarship to Lincoln. May 28th, I graduated out of high school, 1983. My mother died July 16th. First she had breast cancer, then she had bone cancer. So she died right after I graduated out of high school. Got a football scholarship to Lincoln University. Stayed 1 year, came home, got another 4-year scholarship to Norfolk State. I stayed out there 2 weeks, man. I don't use my mom's death as an excuse because I had a choice. And my mind wasn't there. So I came back home. Consequently, I got hired at General Motors in 1985. And that's when that lifestyle, you know, my life God has just turned my life totally around, man. I'm married. This will be our 10th, November 10th, 2015. We'll be married 10 years this year. My wife has supported me in these last few years of my recovery. We have 4 daughters, 14 grandkids, man.
Wow.
I got 5 brothers. They support me, in my recovery. I go to meetings, man, and that's something that I suggest to anybody in recovery. Never stop going to meetings. Like I say, my sponsor, his sponsor, me and him was in treatment together, and they both got over 30 years of clean and serene. I have 18. You got to keep going to meetings. A lot of people, Matt, they'll get focused in the church, and then they stop going to meetings. And I don't suggest that. Church is what it's supposed to be there for, but the meetings are for people like me that has a problem. I'm going to be an addict till the day I die, but I'm not an active using addict. A lot of people get that messed up because you get clean and that's the foundation, man. My foundation is my recovery. It's a statement in the NA book. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop using. And that's a tradition. The desire. And if you got that desire to stop using, that's going to come. And the ultimate weapon is another recovering addict. So if I stay connected to my sponsor, connected to people that's in recovery, that's going to help me stay clean, because they say change people, places, and things. A lot of people have to go back to that environment, man. They can't move out of the environment. They have to go back to the environment where they live. But you don't have to use because you're in your environment. And a lot of people get caught up like that. But for me, I do meetings, man. I tell people a lot of times, I got the Bible in one hand, my recovery book in the other hand. I ain't leave nothing to go back to, man. I don't have nothing to go back to, man. And I'm so grateful for the company I work for. I'm being a light to these young kids, man, that's using drugs, man, and it's a better way.
Yeah.
It's you don't have to use drugs, man. And I look at it, some point in your life, somebody brought you that. And it's hard to just say no, but when you say no, you got to mean no. You got to really mean it. No, I don't want no parts of that. I don't. And I tell the young kids, use me. It took me till I was 43 years old to try to get my life together. You know, Matt, I don't remember my 30s, man. It's literally blocked out because in my beginning of years, in my mid 20s and late 20s, I don't. I told my wife, I don't remember my 30s. I don't. It's blocked out because I was out there so bad that my life, you know, but I thank God he didn't give up on me. I thank God that he had his protection on me, man. There's so many times, man, that death just went by me, man. And I know that God had his protection and hand on me because the things that I did and the things that I was doing in that lifestyle, man, I got a lot of friends that didn't make it.
Yeah.
I got few of them locked up, and they will never see daylight again. But thank God for his grace and mercy, John Perkins made it out.
And so when you think back to, you said you try not to use your mom's death as an excuse, but you were 18 years old, just just got that scholarship, and obviously that's a really traumatic event. Assuming that your mom was a role model for you, or kind of that that safety net, and now you didn't have that, and maybe you think, how did that change your direction?
That was one of the things. I was the only child, and really, I didn't want to go to Lincoln. I got the letter from Barry Swiss in Oklahoma. Man, true story. All I wanted to do was go to Oklahoma, man. But anyway, it was a coach that used to coach at Sumner. He was a head coach in Lincoln, and my mom begged me. My dad, he wasn't there, I say, after my mom and dad got a divorce when I was 9. So from 9 to 18, he was in and out. And when I went away to Lincoln, man, it was like, I played sports to get my mom out of the ghetto. And I didn't have that, come on, John, hang in there if you need me for anything or what. I didn't have, the safety net didn't come to years later. But I always say, man, I wish I had somebody that would just push me, encourage me, hey, don't quit, don't give up, man.
A role model. You needed a role model in your life, kind of, and you kind of lost that.
And that is, just like my job, I'm getting attached to you. Look, I just like come back for a weekend. Where you been, John? We miss you. But I can't keep in contact with them. That's a part that I really, really wanted to be a mentor, be a role model to some of these some organization, man, because I didn't have that. If I had that one person to just go to and say, hey, I'm struggling, my mom died, I don't want to do this. And just and that is so important, man, because in the African American community, the father is really not in the home. And I don't really say, well, that's in any home, really. Whether it's black, white, it don't matter. The father figure is not in the home as much, man, as we should be. And when you have teenagers and they in sports or whatever they do, they don't even have to be in sports, they be doing something, but have somebody outside their parents to just give them that oomph and that mentorship, like you say. And that's a thing that I really, really have a desire to do, man. My heart is for teenagers, kids, especially people that's dealing with that drug. Man, my heart, that's all I want to do is give back to I don't want nobody to go through what I went through, man.
Yeah.
You know, that's why I was reaching out to Channel 4, to you, and because if God did it for me, here's an inner city kid, you know, I had it all. My mom raised me the right way. I had it all. Had football scholarship, played at the best high school football in the city of St. Louis at Sumner High, man. You know, and if I had reached out to my coaches, Mr. Perry, Mr. Walls, like I should have, or during that time when I was going through, they would have been there. You know, because Coach Walls, Coach Perry, we still have a relationship to this day, 40 years later. I ain't think about that at you just now. I could have been calling Coach Perry.
Yeah, I think that's kind of hard to do when you're that age, or to recognize that that's what you need.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But then, obviously, eventually you turn to something that would you call, turn into crack, like filling a void somewhere in your life? It was something that you didn't have, so you kind of you're self-medicating, I guess, is what a lot of people say it is.
And my sponsor told me one time, Matt, he said, John P., till your desire becomes greater than the use, you're going to stop. I was medicating that pain of, as an 18-year-old kid, I saw my mom, half her body gone with the cancer and everything. I didn't really break down, man, the pain. I suffocated that pain of being the only child. My mom, I didn't really break down to maybe about 4 or 5 years ago with my wife, and I was just crying. And she, why are you crying? I said, I'm just breaking down my mom. I suppressed that pain, and then when I started using, it was like they say one is never enough, 1,000 too many. Man, it was like I was chasing a ghost, man. I wasn't gonna get no higher. All I was doing was just spending money. And it was like, then I wake up the next day, ain't got no job, don't know where I'm gonna eat, about to get ready to get evicted out of my apartment. It's when you use it, you don't think about the repercussions until after the dope gone. Then you realize, oh man, I lived out on I-70 and Delmore. I would go all the way down to the city to get drugs. Crazy, man. But that pain, it's like now I have no desire, 18 years, and I'm still clocking. I love my clean date almost more than my biological date, because my clean date, man, that April 10th, man, it means so much to me, man, because that was the last time that I ever used drugs, and I ain't looked back. This is my life. Once you get to that point, this is your life. And the number one thing, man, that I didn't even know how to love myself. You got to love yourself, because you can't love nobody else if you don't love yourself. And I wasn't loving myself because I was putting stuff in me that was destroying me. From the 20 years of using, the only thing that it has done to me, it messed up my nervous system a little bit.
Yeah.
But for the most part, physically, I'm healthy. But for 20 years, man, I put that drug in my body, man. And, other people have used harder drugs, and they got a lot of repercussions from using that hard drugs. But thank God that like I say, it just messed up my nervous system a little bit. But I had to start loving me. I had to start loving John, and I am so grateful, man, that God allowed me to get off drugs before I found my wife, man. That was, I didn't never want to take that in to a marriage, my drug use. And I thank God he allowed me to be totally delivered off drugs. So I found my wife. I chased her in high school, man, but we reacquainted on Facebook. But I thank God for her because she supports me. She knew it was two things I told her that she'd never have to worry about our marriage. Me cheating on you and smoking crack. And I hold to that, man, because that drug, man, if it's anybody out there that find the treatment centers, I didn't know. There's treatment centers everywhere now. I mean, there's a lot. I mean, for a while I was like, man, did they shut down the inpatient treatment? Man, they got 90-day treatment centers now. They got 60-day inpatient treatment centers. They got treatment centers a lot in Illinois and Missouri because when I started looking, that was my biggest. If I ever got clean off of drugs, I want a drug counselor, man. I want to be a drug counselor. I want to help. Now I work with a company, man, that I'm in the process of becoming. My desired job is becoming a drug counselor, man. But it is help out there, man. It's help. When I was using in my 80s and the 90s, it was a lot of treatment centers. And they still out there. Because when I started looking to find a job, it's a lot of help out there, man. And I think if people really, really want it, just help is there.
Yeah, I think there's a disconnect between there is available services, but the access to it can be pretty shaky, especially depending on where you live. And just looking at the statistics, nearly.
I can't hear you.
Sorry. Nearly 1 million people in Missouri have a substance use disorder, and probably 14% actually end up getting treatment.
Yeah.
So it's like the services they're increasing, but it's not fast enough to fill that gap because especially with the onset of fentanyl and that wave of the epidemic.
God.
Speaking of that, I think you got out at a good time because a couple years later was when fentanyl really started creeping into pretty much the whole country, and now you've got that so much of it, and it's everywhere, ubiquitous. Yeah.
Man, Matt, if that fentanyl was out there, I wouldn't be here. I moved back from Springfield, and I came back home. A big brother of mine, I asked him about this guy that we used to use with, how's such. He said, man, he died. He thought he had crack. He had fentanyl and died on the spot. And that drug, it's almost like the heroin was in the 50s and 60s and the 70s. Then the 80s, the crack then came. And now, the crack was their epidemic. Now there's fentanyl. And you don't know what you're getting. And it's, man, and it's, honestly, when they legalized that marijuana and did that, I think it's a difference helping the cancer patients, but it almost gave a license, to just say, hey, let's do drugs.
Yeah, there's always something out there that's going on, and it's been like there's always the boogeyman has always been there. It just kind of the face of it changes a little bit every once in a while or so. But that's the last 50 years we've been kind of dealing with the same thing. Now because of the potency of fentanyl and how easy it
Right.
is to overdose on it. More than 100,000 people a year are dying in the
Yeah.
country from overdose deaths. You got 170,000 people dying from alcohol-related deaths, and it's like, the need is absolutely there, and it's just,
Yeah.
as a country, we're not rising to the occasion, or haven't been for a long time. And I think a lot of it goes back to, just the stigma around the disease. We don't talk about it really like
Right.
a medical disease. It's more of a moral thing. When science has pretty much proved that it is a medical disease, but a lot of times
And
it's still not treated like that.
it is. I didn't know this. My aunt told me that the doctor told my mom, marijuana, she's smoking joint, because it's supposed to help the cancer patients. And I didn't know that. My mom was deceased it was years later. I didn't know that. I was like, wow. And then, like you say, the medical field. But it's always something, man. Something's for the good. It's always going to turn out used for the bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Well, fentanyl was created to be a better medical drug than morphine.
wow.
Yeah, that's the reason
That's
that it
where it
was
was really
created.
from. Oh, I
So
didn't know that.
heroin is grown like in a field from like the poppy seeds or whatever. I don't know exactly how it works, but fentanyl is synthetic, so completely synthetic. You can make it in a lab, and that's why it's so much easier to produce. The pipeline from China, they're making the raw ingredients. They send it
So
to
we're supposed to
Mexico.
help people with pain or with medical field.
And it is used medically. Like if you got in a you get in a bad car crash and
I
you
didn't know
need immediate medication to deal with that acute pain, they might give you fentanyl. It's very controlled and it's a very small amount, but they use, because it works. That's but so originally created for the medical purpose. Then you've got in the 90s, the prescription drug booms and all that stuff with Purdue, Mallinckrodt, and the distributors and pharmacies, and turned out to really contribute to people getting addicted to prescription drugs. And then eventually, when they really cut those off, you go to the street, and now you've got this huge population that's addicted to a terribly addictive drug in fentanyl. And so you go to the street for it, and that's
I didn't know that. And,
so.
wow.
And that's kind of, I guess with crack, that's kind of started way earlier. Now, from what I hear from people, like the heroin and crack pretty much is non-existent on the streets anymore. It's all fentanyl.
Wow.
And so, yeah, I'm curious to hear about whenever you tried to get treatment, like what did it look like? What were some of the good things that you got out of that, and maybe why didn't it work when you went there and stuff like that?
It goes back to even when the first treatment center that I went in, it was like this place called Comtree Thing Center. It was in DeSoto, Missouri. We was way back in the woods. They say, if you want to leave to get to 55, it's pitch dark out there. I don't advise you to leave. But it was almost like every treatment I went in, I still had that, hadn't totally gave it up. I'm not gonna say I was faking or whatever, but it was like I wanted to stay clean, but I just didn't know how to stay stopped. I would get clean. I had even got, I got 30 days, 60 days, go back, 90 days. I did always, at one point I had over a year and went back and used, and it was a person at my church one time, she told me, stop giving up your deliverance. And that's what I was doing. God would bring me out, then I chose to go back in. He had delivered me once, and I'll go back in. Uh, Treatment centers work. You have to work the treatment centers. You have to work when they give you, all the information. You have to take heed to the information, and you have to use the information that's given you. And like I say, I think one of the hardest things is letting go of old friends, old association. But for the most part, with me, all my friends, all I was using, I'm like, man, I'm not finna keep doing that. I ain't finna keep doing that. I'm done. When I said I was done, and separate, because the treatment center is gonna tell you, man, like I said, I've been through Salvation Army, ARC, Archway. It was like one time a treatment center. This guy, he really did with the Word of God. Comtree Athena Center. I've been through over maybe 20 to 25 treatment centers, but all along it was me. I had to make that decision to say, I'm done. I'm done. Look what, and I would tell anybody, look at your life before you ever use any drugs. How was your life? I just told one of the little kids in the program, I said, man, how was your life, man, before you start using? You did what your mom and dad tell you to do. You go to school, you have fun. Look at your life. And I looked at my life before I ever used drugs, man. Always was an athlete. Bowling was my hobby. That was my mom's hobby. We bowled. I was always into sports. And then I look at my life when I started using. Look what it did. Man, when I weighed maybe 168 pounds. I got that little. And when I finally got off drugs, I got up to 200, 220. But I look at what it did to me, man. It physically destroyed me. Mentally, my mind was not there. My bishop preached a message one time I ain't never got. He said, trapped in the body, controlled by a mind that ain't my friend. And if you don't have the right mindset, your mind take you doing things that and have the right mindset. And that drugs, man, it do things you never want to. You end up doing things you say you never do.
Yeah.
You get caught up, man, and bruh, I'm telling you, man, the bottom line, if people are dealing with their children, dealing in drugs or significant others or whatever, they gotta want to quit. And I don't try to, like, at one point in time, I would Bible bash people and I would never stay clean. And I had a little cousin of mine, he rest in peace, but he said, go read this. And I didn't know what it was. He said it was a scripture in the Bible, said, study, be quiet, and mind your own business. But how can I put it? We can get on a person, hey, you need to get off this drug, you need to get off drug. No matter what you do, until that person come to a decision in their mind and say, hey, I don't want to do this no more.
It sounds like, though, you kind of put a lot of blame on yourself for falling into something that, I mean, I'm sure that when you went into it, you didn't think that, it was going to become a decades-long thing that was really hard to get out of. But Do you really think that? Why are you so hard on yourself?
Yeah.
Instead of, yeah, I mean, you and tons of other people have gone through the exact same thing, you know?
Yeah. And that's, and when that's the, I think, I don't know if it was a counselor or one of the, at the jobs, the paper that read, you got to forgive yourself. You got to forgive yourself. And it took me a long time, man, to forgive myself, because I had so much. One of the, I really look at it. I knew deep down in my heart, I could have made professional football. I knew it was there. I had it all in my heart, but my mind. And, you know, and then I had to forgive myself, man, for them 20 years out there selling dope and then in that lifestyle in the streets, fast lane, and then I get hooked on the drug, man, and was hooked on the drug for almost, like I say, 20 years, man. I had to come to a point that, hey, God delivered you. He brought you out, love you. You know, my wife, I'm still learning to learn how to buy myself stuff, man.
Mm-hmm.
You know, treat myself to something, you know. And like I told her, I said, you know, honey, I was out there for so long, you know, without, you know, it was times, man, I would run past the mirror because I didn't like looking at myself, man. I was so that degradation, my body, physically, mentally. I didn't want to look in the mirror. So like now, she said, why you standing in the mirror? I said, girl, you just don't know. It was time where I didn't even want to look in the mirror. Now I want to look in the mirror and say, look, I've been changed. God delivered me. I ain't on drugs no more. You know, I don't take it lightly. And I tell people, it is a great thing when you don't have to worry about using drugs, and your life will be 100% better because you'll be able to be there for your children. You'll be able to be there for your family. But the most important, you'll be able to be there for yourself. You know, I'm here for myself, man. I just turned 60 in last November. I'm still at the age where I can help somebody, man. And that's why I'm so grateful for the company I got hired with, man, that I have an opportunity to become a drug counselor, you know, and help these 12 to 17-year-olds, man. You know, man, that I'm not gonna say it might be easier to reach them than reach people that's in their 20, 30, or 40. But I know how long it took me. I was hard headed. I ain't want to hear nothing you saying, this, that, and the other. But I look at these young guys, man, and this is my first. I ain't been at work job 2 weeks. This is my third week, and I just sit and I watch them. I watch them, and sometimes the counselor, they let me share. And when I first came in, they said, now here's this man, got 18 years off of crack. And I told him, one of the guys asked me yesterday, he said, Mr. John, do you like the job? And I told him, I say, man, you guys are the reason I'm here. My job is to make sure that y'all don't ever pick up drugs again. And man, I wish, man, oh my God, I wish I could keep in contact with them. Just having somebody they can call. But I found out that we can't do that. They can call the job after 2 years. But
Okay.
you know, because a lot of them, they on house arrest. You know, just found, you know, on house arrest, and by law, we can't, you know.
Yeah.
But prayer changed things. I can keep them in prayer and just keep praying and say, Lord, don't let them go back out using drugs again.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because I told them, man, y'all got y'all whole life ahead of y'all, man. You know, 12 to 17, man. I was like, when I went in there, I'm like, whoa, these guys, they're using all these drugs, man. And you see it on TV. You see it every day, you know. Our city is like drug infested everywhere, man. But it's not just in St. Louis. It's everywhere, man.
Everywhere. Yeah.
And but it's a lot of people out here that's trying to make a change and trying to help, you know. And I'm just one of them persons, man, that I wanna, you know, I wanna give my time to help somebody to go down the right path, and they'll go that path that I went. I went and I tell them, say, man, use me. If y'all never remember anything, use Mr. John. It took him 20 years to get off crack. Don't do what I did. Do the opposite. Don't go on the drugs. Don't pick up the drugs. Don't do that. Don't go back. You know, and that's something that I got to remember to tell them. Every time you went back, every time I went back, it got worse, man. Every time I went back, it got worse.
When you look back, what was like your worst time compared to your best time? The complete opposites.
It was one time I was in Atlanta, man, and my family lineage is Matthew Henson, that discovered the North Pole. So I took a name out of the family reunion book, Henson, and ran to Atlanta, was on the run from the dope dealers. And I got down to Atlanta, and my cousin, older cousin, I lived with him. Long story short, I got hired at the Omni, man, as a stagehand crew, man. Nice job. Changed the basketball floor over to hockey.
Mm-hmm.
So consequently, I started using with a guy, and I seen the setup. He was trying to set me up, and I told him, man, I need to get out this house, man. I need to leave. So I leave and I start walking down the street. I start, you can feel a presence when somebody following you or somebody behind you. You know, your presence, you can feel it. And I turned around and I seen these guys following me, man. And I seen a guy, it was a liquor store. And I seen a guy driving. I say, man, I give you $50 to take me to 5 Point. 5 Point was the MARTA train, the train.
Mm-hmm.
And God got me out that situation, because I don't know what they was going to try to do, because I still had money on me. And I know that's what they wanted. They wanted to get the money from me. And then the last thing that really was scaring me, man, I was over in the place where I was using, and I was it was safe. It wasn't. And the dope dealer said, man, Jack, don't leave. Jack's my nickname. Don't leave. I left, went to this place, man, and went in this back room, and it was 3 people. The back window was boarded up. And they was mad because I didn't share the dope with nobody. So this guy put a coffee table at the door, and he had a screwdriver in his hand. And Matt, no matter how much I used, that was the one thing I always knew where I was at and my surroundings. So I told the guy, I said, man, open up the door. Oh, he ain't gonna do nothing. I stood up and went towards the door, Next thing I know, I swung the door open, went through the middle room. It was dark. And the guy ran out the door, then the street light was on. And I was on down Sarah and down Martin Luther King. I had to walk all the way home to I-70 in Delmar where I stayed. When I got home, Matt, God told me to go to the Bible and looked up Micah 7:8. And it reads, "Oh, my enemy, in darkness don't gloat. In darkness there is a light." God came save me out that crack house, man, because they was trying to kill me. And when I got home and I read that scripture, I knew that was the most scariest time. Now, I done had guys pull guns out and all that, but that there, I seen it, and I knew what he was trying to do, but I didn't know God came and got me. And then when it lined up with the scripture, man, that was...
Why do you think they wanted to hurt you there?
It was... They were mad because I didn't give him the dope, and he was going to try to do something to me, think I still had dope, and I didn't. And I should never left. But God, I'm telling you, man, I don't know how, because when we first came in the house, they had light in the back room, but in the middle room and to the door, it wasn't nothing dark. And I got up and I looked at it, nothing but God, the Holy Spirit, got me up out of there. And because death, it was like death was right there. You know, when death is on you, you know, you can feel, I don't know if anybody else, but I felt that. And then by me walking home, man, and I was crying, I was like scared, and I was on my knees repenting. I keep doing this thing. And then it's almost like I keep doing this to God. God delivered me once again. It's almost like I keep delivering you, John, off crack cocaine, but you keep going back. You know, one point in time, he might not be there in your life, you know. By me, thank God that me and my wife is a licensed minister. I'm a deacon. I'm in the process. I took my ministry classes. I'm waiting on my pastor to get licensed. And I'm really into the Word of God. And I read not too long ago, and it said, "Why do you want to die before your time?" That's in the Bible. And I'm like, that's what I was doing. I was destroying myself before God might want to call me. Every time I kept going back out, it was like, you know, this could be your last hit. Because I've seen people that use drugs and die, and everybody been there, done that.
Yeah.
You know.
And so what was so that was a couple of the worst. And then what do you think your best is?
You know, when that happened, you would think, just went through what I went through. It was like, soon as I got some money, I'm back off to the races, man. It's like, don't even think about all that you went through, the repercussions of using. It's the consequences, man.
Yeah.
You know, the consequences, man. Matt, every time I went back out used, like I say, that was one of the worst scenarios that I never wanted to be in again, and put myself in that position. You know, it was a few more years later, that's when I went up to Springfield and didn't look back. And I'm so grateful for the people that I met in Springfield, man, that when I got hired at FedEx, man, I'm trying to go back to see the two guys that hired me at FedEx, man, because they knew my story. They knew I was in the treatment center at the time. They knew eventually I want to go back to St. Louis. When I got hired at FedEx, I was able to, you know, when you work for FedEx, you can transfer anywhere in the world.
Oh, okay.
And I came through the Salvation Army, ARC, long story short. I could drive 26,000 pounds or less truck. So I got hired as a driver. But once they contracted drivers out and everything, he told me. And for the 8 years that I was up there working, man, I finally, the administrator at the Salvation Army, they always want you to drive for them. You know, you can come in the program. I got my driver's license back. Thank God for them. They got my driver's license back, and it was a 6-month program. Shoot, they hired me in 90 days, and I'm like, man. But you know you work for them. So when I went up there this last time, 2007, I told the administrator, I said, look here, man, I'm not driving for y'all no more. I'm done. I'm coming up here to work on me, to get off this drugs, man. So don't look for me to drive, because I ain't driving for no trucks no more. Nope. And it was a blessing at the time. But then when my skill matched with FedEx, oh, man, it was like, man, I got a job with a major corporation. You know, I bust my butt, man, you know, and I was done, man. I met two really good people, man. Well, my case manager, she's still up there. Met some good people. But I met a good friend of mine, man. He live in Wyoming. Me and my wife, each year for the last 4 years, we supposed to be going to Wyoming, man, get our finance together. But we're going to see my buddy. I have 18 years. Ron got 20 years. And his wife, she has, I think, about 17 years. But we going up to Wyoming, man, and whoever thought you'd be able to travel. But he just sent me a text. Don't come up in May. It just got 6 feet of snow. I'm like, nah. Yeah, don't come up. Because my wife wanted to go. Her birthday is May 21st. She wanted to go in May. He said, John P., don't come up in May. From June, July, August. Them the only time you come up to Wyoming, because we get snow. He said we get snow from September to May. And he just sent me a text, man, saying, look, man, look, y'all got 80 degrees. Look what we got. Man, this back porch went up with snow. You know,
It's beautiful out there, but yeah, it probably snows a lot. So.
I'm going to go up there by myself during the winter because she ain't going to go. I want to get on the snowmobile.
That'd be fun.
Man, he rode up on the snowmobile in the hills and all that. I'm like, man. But,
That's
you know,
cool.
And then in the recovery, man, people are going around the world clean, man. Man, the World Convention of our recovery of NA came to St. Louis. I was on the committees, man. I went back out using when the World Convention came to St. Louis, man. But people in recovery, man, they share, they retire, they buy homes, they go out the country, man, got passport. And this is what the life of being clean does for people, man. You know, I'm living the dream now, man. I'm one day at a time, man. I don't get too far ahead, but I ain't nothing back there, you know.
Right.
This is supposed to be a year me and my wife finna start enjoying our marriage, traveling, and it all comes from I got off dope, man. I wouldn't have none of this, man. I wouldn't be married. I wouldn't even be sitting right here with Channel 4. You know, the choices that you make have everlasting consequences. So why don't you choose to do something right and doing something for you that you get the right consequences?
gather around the fire.
Thanks for listening and watching Backstory STL. We'll release new episodes every Wednesday. Check it out on the First Alert 4 app or wherever you get your podcasts. See you next time.